Hello, everyone, and welcome to my inaugural episode of a new YouTube series where we are going to watch the World Series of Board Gaming finals. Finals for each of the 16 tournaments, the semifinals, the finals, and I'm going to go through and provide strategic commentary about each of these videos. Now, you can see in this video here that the wonderful hosts of Blue Peg, Pink Peg actually already narrated this game, which I've chosen for today, which is Azul. But I wanted to make sure to just dive strictly into kind of a strategic take on what everyone is doing here. If you want someone who's a lot more fun and entertaining, I encourage you to go watch the original cast of this. But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to play through Azul. We're starting with this one because it's, of course, a little bit of a shorter game. I'm not as experienced as any of the players at this table, but I have played a fair amount of Azul, about 50 games or so. And so I should have a pretty good idea of what's going on at this table and kind of be able to walk us through strategically what's happening in this game. So in the top left, we have Nate, who's in the first player seat. Top right is Andrew, second player seat. Bottom right, Ryan, player 3. And then in the bottom left, we have Luca, who is player 4. I'm going to go through this as if I don't know the ending of this. I might kind of change my commentary partway through, but we're going to start at the beginning kind of without the knowledge of how this game ends. And so let's go ahead and get started on this video here while they're setting up for the first round. So, generally when you're the first player, the main things that I'm looking for is value, right? I want 3 or 4 little tiles if I can grab those at the time. And of course, the other thing that people kind of ask there is, well, where do you want to start? And ideally, you want to start kind of in the middle of your board. It gives you more options to expand out. I know kind of one of the more popular strategies is to sort of really focus on the column in the middle of the board there. And it's strong, right? It allows you to connect to a lot of areas. But looking at this initial layout here, like I'm always tempted by more things. So I'm seeing those 3 reds right there. That's catching my eye. 3 blacks right there, also catching my eye. But amusingly, they're both on the left and right sides of the board. In that third row, they kind of are on the extreme sides. And so that's something that people are a little bit wary of, that I'm a little bit wary of. But that being said, you can consider kind of taking those black tiles and going in the bottom middle row, the kind of 5 row there with those triples. So personally, I'd probably think about starting with one of those, either the triple red or the triple black in the bottom row. Actually kind of looking at it, I sort of wonder if I'd want to go, I think I'd maybe want to go with the triple reds, but Nate here says, nope, I'm really primarily interested in starting in the middle of the board with those double oranges, kind of making that maximum options of where he can sort of connect to at that point forward. And I think that's a totally legitimate play at this point. It gives you the most options, and kind of looking at this board, there's a decent number of blues out there that he can use to kind of go for that 3 slot below. Andrew does what I was thinking and sort of goes for the reds in the bottom there, which obviously I think is a totally legit play as well. So we'll see what Ryan here chooses to do in response. And he's going to go ahead and grab a triple as well. And then he actually makes the choice to go ahead and just cash in on the third row. I actually really like that play. I think that going for the bottom is fine for the middle column, but you can also just make things work. And if you see, there's at least one double teal. There's a double teal stack out there that he could take advantage of. But the thing is that he leaves this really nice situation for Luca to claim, going first with a triple. And that triple is not quite in the middle, but definitely in that second column there. So after the first round here, I would say that Luca kind of got the best situation, which is a little ironic. Usually going last in Azul in the first round of the game is sort of a minor detriment. And actually they sort of balance it out in this tournament by making going last the tiebreaker there. Like I mentioned, Nate's then going to go for those blues. There's kind of a bounty of blues out there on the table so that he can connect that gold area to the golden tiles to the blue tiles right below them. I'll say right now I'm not super good with game terminology, so If I don't call them by their proper names, that's okay. When you listen to Blue Peg, Pink Peg, they'll tell you about all the things, and they'll go back and forth about what the right names for all the tiles and factory floor things are and everything, which I thought was really amusing. Now let me pause for a second. Let me catch up here. I really like Andrew's play there, taking the triple blacks on top of the triple reds. He's basically just saying, look, I'm planning for the long term for this column, and getting just the most value out of those tiles there. And then Ryan here, he takes exactly advantage of the situation and takes those double teals above those triple blacks, which is what we were sort of seeing before. Luca does basically the same thing with the blues right above his. Great turn for the both of them. And we're sort of in this funny situation where I like Nate's position the least, and he went first this turn. That being said, he has the most flexibility at this point in time. He'll just go ahead and ignore the value of things and sort of focus on finishing what he'd already started, which I think makes a lot of sense at this point in time. Andrew's going to close that bottom row. Again, totally makes sense in this instance. I don't think there's much else that you'd really want to focus on, given what he had there. You'll notice that they're passing around that first player marker, and it's pretty funny. You'll see this game speed up and slow down at various points, having watched through. And in this past round, they just whipped through it, right? Everybody knew kind of what was best. And now Ryan's debating what he's looking at here. He could take double blues and kind of overpay to like really focus on getting that first column there. And is that what he's going to do? It is. Yeah. He ends up basically just saying, look, I'm going to try to score the maximum I can on the first turn. I don't care that I'm getting that -1. And then I'll just kind of build out from my sort of starting spot here, which I think makes a lot of sense. I like that play. Luca could do the same thing with the yellows there, or he could pick up a pair of blacks to kind of continue his column down. He wouldn't finish it this round, but he'd go ahead and get it started, which I think is actually a pretty legitimate option as well, because if he takes that single orange there, he leaves kind of a nice triple red and a triple teal on the play for the other players, which is not that great for Luca. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, he would have 4 pots in the middle, so he would grab one of them, but he kind of just gets the dregs at the end, and he says, I'm going to go for it. I bet he probably scoped out faster than I did what the other players are going to take at this point in time. I'm sitting in Nate's seat. I'm going to take that triple teal to kind of continue the column there. I don't think I want to overpay for those reds. He says, I agree with Nick. He's good to go. Andrew here is kind of in an interesting position. He can close the blacks, but that's not so exciting. I think I would take the triple reds and just kind of plan on that. Yeah, it's not great because it's completely across on the other side of the board. It's not going to score, but it helps him with those diagonals for reds if he gets that in the long run. Ryan says, sure, I'll take the blacks. He uses those to just kind of continue. Oh, I see, down on the diagonal in the 4th row there. Not the ideal spot, but also not bad. And Luca gets kind of stuck here. I mean, we knew he was going to get stuck. He knew probably he was going to get stuck with these oranges. And now he's kind of deciding, like, how am I going to put them? And then, yeah, of course, in that bottom row there, because that bottom left column is going to be a lot better for him than all the way in the bottom right, essentially, or the 4th row in the right. So kind of glancing around briefly, I like to kind of count how many tiles folks took on the first turn. So Luca and Ryan here took 8. Nate took 7, and Andrew took 11. So Andrew really started off with value of tiles, but is going to score the least amount of points in the first turn as he has nothing touching. Luca and Ryan basically running the same sort of strategy here with run the column. So look at the classic 1, 2, 3 scoring to get them 6 points. Sorry, I'm blocking Luca's scoreboard there. And Nate trailing pretty close behind with 3 and just about to kind of close out for another one. Again, looking at this, even though Nate was first this turn, he seems like he's just a smidge behind. Things didn't quite work out for him that well. Maybe he prioritized going in the middle, and then I think kind of the way that everything laid out just played nicer for the other players as they end up getting sweeter triples, and he didn't really get to kind of collect value there. And Andrew just said, I'm going to get basically as many tiles as I reasonably can in this instance, but he is going to start with the cruddiest score, I think, at just 2 there. So going into the next round, Luca pulled first player, which was pretty sweet for him. If I'm in his seat, what I'm really looking to accomplish is getting probably a bunch of blacks. Like, I kind of could continue to push that column that he's building and get some some blacks there. If there's a triple black, I'd be really tempted to put it in the third row because it sort of connects, and I know that I'm going to do kind of that bottom left yellow tile as well. A triple yellow, I guess, would be nice to finish out that bottom row. You always like to have things as clear as possible, but I really would prefer having some black tiles in his seat. That's kind of what I'd primarily look at. I think Luca's standing up there to kind of assess people's boards and get a sense of what was taken out of the game. And we're laying out the tiles here. Yeah. So we see like a triple red there. If I'm Luca, I don't love a triple red. It's, I guess, okay on that fourth column, but that's not really what we're looking for. Triple blue is actually not bad for him, right? Because it goes right there in the middle next to his teals. Doesn't really synergize with those yellows he put in the bottom, but it gets him started. Triple teal, yeah, that's okay, but that's not really where he wants to be right now, I think. And then, of course, you can look at doubles. If he's looking at any kind of doubles, I suppose it would be teals or yellows, or just getting started on the blacks, like I said. But looking at what's been pulled so far, there might not even really be enough blacks. Like, there's barely enough blacks to fill that fourth row for him. So I might just give up on that dream and say, hey, I'm going to be focusing on something else, which does actually make an argument for why you'd take the triple reds to put in the fourth row there, because you know you're not going to do the blacks in that column. Yeah, a couple interesting choices here. I think it's 2 blacks, 3 reds, or 3 blues. And Lucas says, nope, I'm interested in keeping myself clear, keeping my options open. I'm just going to clear that bottom row. Nothing here is exciting for me. Let's pass it on and move it forward. Nate here, I think I slam dunk those triple teals, and I just put it next to that blue right there. It kind of continues his central control. Yeah, that's a really nice pull for Nate. That's something that he needed right there. It's really nice that Luca wasn't as motivated for that, left him there. And there's plenty of other singleton teals out there to finish that fourth row, which is great. Andrew's probably a little bummed to see that. That would have been really kind of the perfect one for him too. And that's sort of the problem with being off to the side of someone who started in the middle, right? He's in that second column. Nate started in the third column. And so that makes his ideal options here a little bit more limited. What am I focusing on? See that triple red? Triple red doesn't really help him at all. It's kind of stuck there. He says, I'm going to go for value again. I'm going to collect a bunch of blues. Oh, and he goes for the bottom row. That's fascinating. That doesn't touch any of his stuff and won't. And so I guess he's kind of playing for a long game. I mean, it is below his sort of red column there, but I don't think I love that play again a ton. But I guess he didn't have a bunch of great options there. Ryan here just kind of slammed those extra blacks. Like, he had already started on that row. He knew that that's where he was going. I think that makes a lot of sense. But he's kind of set up a situation again where he's going to sort of be going last year again, which I guess he doesn't care about. But I really value the first player tile in Azul quite a lot. If Luca's true to form from what he did last turn, he's just going to kind of maybe take another yellow here. But if I'm in his seat, I probably take the double reds to go first next turn and put them in that fourth column with the plan of getting blacks, I think, or finishing out the reds. Yeah, I think I take the double reds in his seat. The teals are really not so good for him. But nope, he says true to form. I'm going to finish the row. I'm not so excited by these options. He's clearly really valuing keeping open what he can do and sort of sticking to that column plan from before. Again, if I'm Nate here, I'm gonna go for some value. I might take those triple teals and say, hey, I'm a diagonal guy. But he doesn't want to. He wants to kind of stick on that scoring in the middle box plan, which actually I think now that I'm seeing it, I think makes a lot more sense. Slam dunk for Andrew, who gets the triple teals that he got kind of missed out on last turn. Yeah, that's really, really nice for him. Honestly, I don't think he could have asked for anything better in that instance. And now, actually, with Andrew, like looking at it, those triple blues are really a lot sadder at the bottom. Like, it'd be nice if they were in the second row there. Although, ironically, if he'd put them in the third row, he would have prevented himself from getting to cash out here. So maybe he just had kind of like some precognizant thinking there. Ryan just says, I'm going for points. I'm scoring points exactly where I'm at all game long. He takes that yellow because it connects to that blue. And he's just going to march on down that column, probably connecting things. If he can get 2 blues, he's going to be super excited here. And I think he's kind of banking. Well, I don't know if he's thinking about this, but because the players in front of him have taken those teals for that third row, it's going to make sure that the bag has a lot of teals on the repull, and they're not so interested in taking it in the 3 slot. So it's going to open up those options for him, which is actually a really sweet position to be in. Luca thinks because he's actually going to take something that isn't oranges to fill out his bottom row, and he's stuck in the same position again where he's got kind of all these reds. I guess maybe if he sticks, I think maybe at this point he takes the double blacks to go into that 4th row of the column that he started building on the first turn. But maybe he's also going to take the Ryan path and just sort of go for points here, grab like a singleton blue or something like that. Nope, he likes the column plan. I like the column plan too. Nice play, Luca. I'm on board with that. Nate here strikes me as someone, given what I've seen so far, is that he's going to take like a singleton teal here to close out. Boom. As we figured out what his style is. His style is build the box and kind of continue there, which makes sense. You know, that's going to be the way he's going to maximize his points kind of in the middle of the game here. Well, fun times at Phoenix Studios over here. I accidentally had a second audio recorder connect in the last bit, so I'm going to have to record this. So a little time synced separately, so if I repeat myself, don't worry too much. Let's pick up the game exactly where we were at a moment ago. Andrew now is taking a look on the board. That triple red is a passable option for him, but probably what he's doing is taking like a single black or a single blue here to kind of continue on his adventure in the bottom. The problem that Andrew, I think, is coming across right now in this game is he doesn't have any of the cheap scoring points. He has like nothing in the first 2 rows, right? And so he's planning for a really long game. And you know, that can be really handy. Like he's got maybe plans to do double diagonals or something like that, but the colors are not totally synced in that fashion for him right now. So we'll see how that ends up panning out for him. Ryan here scoops up the 3 reds finally, just kind of throws. Oh, interesting. He throws them on the other side. I think that if I was Ryan, I would have maybe put them in the bottom there, because that's kind of an adjacent column and there's a good chance he's going to wheel the 3 reds. Other players have not really shown that much interest in taking them. I think Luca's really interested in taking the 2 yellows here, and he's like the only other player that can take the 3 reds. Because he can't really take the blacks. Oh, I guess he wants to take the reds. Good thing that Ryan was doing his own plan and not listening to me. I don't totally get this though, because it just kind of flings something over to the other side for some points. The double yellows I think are good for him. Maybe he's worried about getting stuck with just sort of like a crappier collection round if it goes around 2 more times, because he's going to take a singleton if he takes the double yellows and then maybe get stuck with some singleton that goes in the 3rd row. So maybe he's sitting here thinking it's going to come all the way around to me. One red for Nate makes sense here. Just kind of matches on his rows there, scores him points, sticks with his sort of like box strategy that he's got going in the middle here. 3 blues for Andrew, is sort of the dream for him. He gets to connect that, clear out, and start over again. I actually really would have considered maybe putting that in the 2nd row for him. He doesn't really want another 5th row thing. And so if Andrew puts in the 2nd row, he scores a lot more points this turn, opens up more point scoring options for himself in the future. I actually think that maybe he should have put it in that 2nd row instead of the bottom row, but it's really hard to say no to that. Ryan and Luca just kind of taking some freebies here. The yellows for Ryan are so-so. They're kind of in the middle there. Don't score a lot of points. And for Luca, the teal's nice. It connects with a column that he cares about. So maybe even better than having taken the yellows, as I suggested before. Although it's not going to score quite as many points as I think taking that yellow would. It sort of, again, opens up more options, creates more points of contact for him throughout the board. And my recording window here is going to be blocking score boxes for a while. But I think this was a nice turn. Who came out? I actually think this was a decent turn for Andrew. I do think that he was kind of behind before, but he sort of is marching up there. Although he's at 6 after scoring. I think the other players are ahead. Actually, now looking at it a little bit more, I bet Nate's got a lot of points under secretly hidden under my window here, given that he's kind of connected that box regularly, just sort of in an awkward position with that single black at the bottom there. I mean, that's the thing that he wants, and he's going first, so that's pretty great. He's looking to get just piles of blacks to throw on there in this next round. Taking a look over at the box on the right there, I mean, they just kind of pop, but the blues and reds and teals seem prevalent. And there's like basically no yellows in there. Luca threw a few yellows in. So I feel like yellows are probably what's left in the bag right now. We're going to see a lot of yellows come out. And then I think this is the round where they're going to have to throw the things from the box back into the bag. And so, you know, you see a lot of teal spots covered by players in play, which means that a lot of teals are going to go back into the bag, but the overall density is slightly diminished from before. Okay, so if I'm Nate, I'm really hoping for a pile of blacks. I want that 5th spot. I want that 4th spot. I could even do the 3rd spot, but really I guess the 3rd spot could be the yellows, which, you know, if we think a lot of yellows are going to come out, 3 yellows is okay for him. That'd be a fine option. I think the hard choice is if he gets 3 yellows or 2 blacks. You know, do you take the 2 blacks to sort of like march down the way there? I think that's the kind of thing that's better if there are 2 blacks, but you can also see that Luca is looking for 2 blacks as well. Or we'll go with 4 yellows. Wow. 4 yellows is pretty bad for Nate. He doesn't want 4. 3's good enough. So, I mean, maybe you take the 4 just for the 3 spot, and -1 point's not that big a deal in this instance. You can kind of fill up the other things. If he doesn't take it, though, man, that 4 is a dream for Andrew because it connects his garbage over on the other side, and maybe he can just play some kind of weird column-focused strategy that doesn't connect with each other. It's honestly a legit option for Nate, just in the sense of I think that Andrew's in the weakest position in play right now. He just has the least kind of connected points. His column's looking a little better than other players' columns because it starts from the bottom going up, but he's just not going to be scoring a lot of points in the next couple of rounds. I think Andrew's got a lot of work to do. So him getting those 4 yellows would be a game changer. Nate doesn't think about it too long. He says, I can't let someone do that, which is fair. I think most of the time when I see 4 things, I'm going to take the 4 things. And I appreciate that he put it in the 3rd row there. I think that's absolutely the right call for him. It's sad if he ends up getting other negatives, but probably not. He has a pretty clear board after that. I guess Andrew realized he didn't clear his blue from the board last time. It slightly changes what would have come out on those last 2 factory tiles, I suppose, but not really that much. And I'm glad that they don't do any kind of weird retconning here. Would make no sense. Be nice if there were 2 blues here. That's probably what I would take if I was Andrew. 2 blues or 3 blues would be kind of a dream to connect to that column there. It'd be nice if there were a lot of reds. Because the 4th red there would allow him to kind of start working on that diagonal. Could take blacks maybe for the 3rd column. He says, I want to do reds. Yeah, it's a little bit awkward because there's just singleton reds everywhere else. I like that play a lot more if there's a double red somewhere, but maybe he's just kind of, I mean, I would be hoping in his seat that your other players are pushing reds into the middle here. Ryan, I think, wants 2 blues, but there aren't 2 blues. So the next closest thing is maybe teals. But he goes for singleton red. He just says, I'm going to go straight across. Okay, this tells me a couple things. Ryan is marching across the board with that red there. He has 3 he's got 3 now in that row. He's probably going to have 3 in his second row. He's planning on ending the game on the 5th turn, which is really bad for Andrew. Like I said, he's got a long-term game strategy. And yeah, when I'm looking at a player who takes a singleton thing onto a clear board, they are pretty clearly signaling that they're playing a kind of rush strategy there, which I think makes sense for Ryan right now. He's got sort of the most like connected blocky board of anybody out there. He's not way far on any of his columns. His only diagonal is the black one, and getting that 5th diagonal, the 5th slot of the blacks is not too nice for him. There's too much fashion going on the screen right now for me to speculate on what Luca might be doing, but hopefully he's doing something. Sure, he's taking the 2 blacks, which I didn't really look at his options, but that makes sense given that it goes right down his column there. He's working for it, and blacks are going to be contested by Nate over here. Having 3 blues in the middle there is pretty nice. Nate could consider taking the 3 blues and kind of working on the diagonal there. That 4th blue also, or that 4 blue spot also kind of connects to his center block, especially now that he's taking those yellows. The unfortunate thing for him, though, is that he really needs to complete that black row. And he wants blacks at the bottom. He wants blacks in the 4th row. In the long term, he could see blacks in the 3rd row. In the long term, he could see blacks in the 1st row. So maybe he just takes the 2 blacks and moves on with his life. Normally this is a tough call for me. I mean, I'm between those 2 things. He could consider taking the singleton yellow to kind of maintain first player, which is not a bad choice. And the singleton yellow is the best of his 1 slots. And, I don't really mind taking a -1 to do something that you really like to do. But them being double yellows means that other players are a little bit more inclined to scoop them up. Like Luca's looking at that double yellow for sure. One of those is going to be his. Nice that those are kind of set up there. And instead, Nate takes double teal. I can see why. It connects to his box. But I don't think other players want to take the teal. I mean, Andrew could. Yeah, I don't love that. I would have taken the blues or the blacks, I think. Andrew takes the blues here. Maybe Nate was just punishing him, thinking that he's going to take the blues, and Nate didn't want to take the blues. And now Nate's going last. But yeah, I like that for Andrew. He's kind of like working on the blue diagonal a little bit because he's got that bottom 5 slot, although the 4 slot is awful for him, but the 2 and 3 slot is good, and get it while the getting's good. Dream of dreams, he gets the 2 blues, he gets 2 reds. That's kind of what he wants the rest of this turn to look like. Ryan, probably sad to see that. He really wants 2 blues. So much so that he takes a single? So much so that he takes a single. Fascinating. I mean, he could have considered, I guess, taking the double teals. That's not very good. Double blacks wouldn't have been bad-ish for him. I mean, it doesn't score quite as many points, but if he's rushing... Yeah, no, he really wants the double blues. I guess maybe we should have taken the double reds to go in that 4th slot, though. And really the thing that he did there was he put that 3rd black in play, which is a dream for Luca. I mean, that is an absolute slam dunk, as he's just kind of connected a column that he's looking to complete now, scoring a bunch of points. The blacks are live but crap for a diagonal play for him. Yeah, that was really, really nice. And then Nate taking a single yellow. I mean, that's the most points he's going to score, so I see that play, but I still think that the blacks are just going to come back to haunt him. Andrew, we talked about it. It's nice that he got the double reds there. A little bit of a shame that he's got the reds kind of on the one side and the blues on the other side. He's creating this sort of the bad tree pattern that you don't want to have with a column. Ryan's just going to kind of stay on target here and complete his top left corner as he marches his way towards the end of the game with increasing celerity. I think if I'm Luca, I take the double yellows here. I guess you could take the double blacks just to kind of ruin Nate's life. Nate does kind of seem like he's in the lead right now. And the double black doesn't score that many different points. If there were more reds, then he could consider going for that fifth slot of reds or starting that up. But taking one to start something at this stage is way too early. He's got other stuff that he can do for sure. And he thinks that Nate's a threat. You see Nate's squinted eyes there. He was not happy to see that. He's trying to understand why Luca did it. It's a couple fewer points for Luca, but it does really jam Nate up. Because what's Nate going to do now? He doesn't have blacks to put in that column. You could take a singleton blue to put in that, then the fourth row, or singleton red. Those are awful choices. Probably you take singleton blacks and just kind of start marching down the bottom. I think he really missed his opportunity last turn because he could have just taken a negative point, take one of those yellows right now, and he'd have 3 blacks instead of the one. I have a tendency to over dramatize, so when I say really, I just use the word really too much. So I think it was just a small mistake rather than a big window, to be clear. Andrew wants 2 blues. 2 blues aren't going to happen. Yeah, he could have taken 2 man. If he had 3 blacks instead of 3 blues there, that would be so nice. I guess he's putting that in the second spot. Oh, he puts it in the first spot. That's interesting. I guess he's really just trying to focus on finishing things out, but it doesn't score any points. You really don't want your 1 spots to just be there to be there, particularly not kind of mid-round like that. But I guess maybe he's thinking, I'll come back with 2 yellows. Yeah, I don't know. Luca here, the red is the best for him. So now he's thinking what happens if he takes the mill red or the factory red. If he takes the factory red, then it's a black, 4 yellows, and a red. Nate takes the black, probably, or just the 4 yellows for the point. 4 yellows are okay for Andrew because he can put him in that bottom left corner there. Just fine, but not too exciting. And then a red goes back to Ryan. Ryan's okay with the red coming back to him. However, if Luca takes the middle red, then it's probably the same thing if Nate takes the black, but he gives other players the option. All right, he says, Nate, you can choose what it looks like. Because I guess he could wheel I think that Luca should have forced the issue. I mean, I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think Nate has any real plays here. Or he doesn't force the issue because he's convinced that now Nate's going to take the black, and he doesn't give him the option of taking the 4 yellows for the 1 point and clearing that row. That's probably. I guess that makes sense. I guess now he knows that Nate's going to take the black here. I take it back, Luca. It was a nice play. I get it. You read his mind faster than me. Good job. Andrew takes the 4 yellows. 1 red for Ryan is fine. Not a great round for Ryan in terms of putting things on the board, but he's advancing on his objectives there. Nate's gonna score an okay amount of points this turn, but they're only okay because they're kind of dangling off of his block there rather than kind of integrated with his block, and he's just sort of jammed up on that bottom row. He is only going to complete blacks for a bottom row this game, which is going to stymie his game a little bit. It's just been underappreciated, undervalued. Luca obviously had an absolute dream turn, starting with 2 tiles on the board and putting another 5, 6, 7, 8 there that just slot in either respectably or well. I mean, this is the turn that I think Luca is moving into a great position. I bet that Nate is still going to have the most points at the end of this round. but Luca has a lot more options. Ryan is pushing the end of the game. And my boy Andrew, I think, is in trouble. So when I mentioned that tree design earlier, right, he's got that column, and then he has the red coming off one side and the blue coming off another side, and they don't really connect. So they're not really scoring points in the way that you want to be scoring points, because they're just scoring a single, and you want to be doing a column and a row at the same time, ideally. Now, what it does open up is that when he plays the black or the teal there, those are going to score some points, but it's not really a dream to play 4 teal tiles to score 5 points with no hope of getting a column, no hope of getting a row, no hope of getting a diagonal. So it doesn't really seem like the nicest situation to be in. And, you know, with that red hanging off to the side there, ironically, putting 3 blacks or 3 yellows is almost the same for Andrew at this point in time. I'm trying to think of what he wants. He wants piles of blues to show up and play. So he can take 2 blues, maybe take 4 blues if other players don't want blues. But unfortunately for him, Nate to his right wants 4 blues. That's one of the things that he wants, because he just wants to keep kind of connecting everything into his box and making that work. Things are looking nice for Luca, as we just mentioned. He's primarily looking for reds right now to finish that kind of bottom left portion of his mat. And then yellow can kind of march him across the board there. That would be totally fine. Triple blues also okay, particularly if he gets those double yellows there. So he's got some options. Oh, are we looking at rings now? Do this. Okay. All right. We're done bragging. Yeah, it's only the end of the 3rd round. Although it's 60% done if we're looking at a 5-round game, which it's more and more looking like it's going to be a 5-round game to me. Because Luca also actually has 3. He's got 3 in that second row, and so does Nate. So a lot of players have the option to end the game. Of course, you don't want to end the game if you don't think you're in a winning position, but Nate right now wants the game to end as soon as possible. He's not really going for any end game scoring points except for the columns there. So it might be actually an option for him to just sort of march across that second row in case Ryan or Luca sort of doesn't want to carry across the finish line, because he doesn't really at this stage, I think, want the game to go for 6 rounds. It kind of depends on what flips out this turn. And let's take a quick pause here, because we didn't really get a chance to look. And so when we're looking out here, we see triple reds as the only triple. And it looks like Andrew took double blues, which makes sense. Double blues he kind of needs for that column there. Doesn't have a ton of other options for getting it. Triple reds are not good for him. Yeah, triple reds really just are not good for him. I guess double blues is really what he most needed on this board. There's nothing else he's trying to fill out. So this is the thing with kind of focusing on the bottom, is that the now you can't play catch up on the top rows. Like, he's just always behind on those top rows. So now he just has to work harder to score the same amount of points that the other players are scoring for placing on the board. Ryan takes the 2 reds just to kind of continue his march across the board. Very in character for him. And kind of a dream flip for Luca. He gets triple reds, 3rd seat, having done no work. And I actually kind of wonder, looking back, I'm going to pause again, because I think that Ryan maybe was so focused on ending the game, he really should have considered taking the triple reds and putting them in those 4th row there, because it's a good row for him. He probably doesn't end up with the double reds in the 2nd row. But it's not a foregone conclusion. Like, there are not enough reds in play to go around. Nate probably takes the double reds. Maybe that's what Ryan was concerned about. But now Ryan's going to be stuck with that 4th row there. So I guess Ryan is just really focused on ending the game. And that's worked out for Luca. He's happy to see that. Those triple reds there are good for him. I don't know if he'll finish that row, because there just aren't enough reds to go around, as I said. And this is pretty funny. 4th seat, 3 teals, but, Nate can't play them because he's got his bottom row locked up and everything else is teal. So that's unfortunate for him. So maybe he's taking the double blacks before they become not an option for him. Other players don't love double blacks, so maybe he's not concerned about it, but it is just the one cleanest option. You could tell by his flick there, he's not feeling great about it for some reason. I think it's because he wanted the double reds. I think that's really what he wanted his game to be, and I think it was like that was he wanted to be able to march across the board, and that's the problem with going fourth. I think going back to last round, he had the option to go first, kind of take a different sort of action, and he went to maximize his points, and that's the payoff that you make. Ryan here taking a single teal. Wow, leaving Luca with a double reds. Oh my god. On a board where everyone wants reds, Luca walked away with 5 of them. Not everyone. Andrew didn't want it, but 3 out of the 4 players wanted reds. Luca walked away with 5 of them. That worked out so nicely. I don't know that Ryan needed to grab that teal just yet. There were a lot of options. I mean, there's a lot of doubles, so it's going to cost you a point. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that Ryan could have or wanted to do on his turn. And I guess really the answer is no, which is maybe why he's stuck in that position. I mean, he wants to take a singleton black, but there's a lot of those. So yeah, I guess Ryan was just sort of in the position where he didn't want anything, and I think that that'll happen. Single blue for Nate because it connects his corner up there, which is fine. I don't know what he's gonna do for the rest of the turn though, because he needs blacks or blues in his 4th row. In his 3rd row, he needs reds or blacks. And in the 2nd row, he needs reds. Yeah, he's just stuck needing colors that don't exist right now because everyone doesn't care about teals and yellows because Nate has sort of blocked that middle part. Andrew is just sort of playing on a different part of the board. And then there's just 5 teals wide open in the center of the board. Ryan doesn't have a lot left to do this turn. So maybe he just takes those 5 teals for a point. It's so sad because I don't think he's even completing a diagonal. The 5 teals are actually decent for Luca, who just keeps seeming to be like on a slightly different, like just a little bit of a different plane than other folks are, which is perfect. That's exactly where you want to be in Azul. I think that's what they're having a conversation about right now. I mean, it's not a dream for him, right? It just scores him a couple points. Doesn't connect everything, but it opens up the options there. They're laughing about the fact that like no one can take those teals right now. Same with Andrew. He's like, how do I put 5 in the middle? It's like, well, I don't really have much other choice. There we go. Ryan takes it for a point. All right, Luca, slam dunk yellows. Slam dunk yellows. Finally. Been asking for it for so long. Mate, what are we doing? We got nothing. Start drawing blacks 1 by 1. Or blues 1 by 1. You could take blues 1 by 1, I guess. In theory, if there's a pile of blues next turn, you could go for finishing the 4th and 5th rows if no one else wants blues. That is possible, except for we know that Andrew wants 4 blues. Oh, but he's already got 2. So actually, maybe you're not contested, although there might just not be a lot of blues left in the bag at this point. Yeah, I see it. I see you, Nate. The bummer for Andrew. He wants to just kind of close out the blues there, so I think he has to say something else to himself. I think you take blacks. That's the other thing you want, right? Is blacks there, because then you want teals. Oh, he needs to take another yellow to finish out his little. Is anyone else going to take yellow though? No one else is going to take yellow. I would have taken the black. I guess you only have so many turns anyway, so it probably doesn't matter one way or another. Probably getting a black anyway, and then maybe he gets 2 blacks. Except for Ryan takes a black right now, right? Because it just does his little march across doesn't care about the singleton red. Is he going to get stuck with a bunch of negatives? It's possible. That's the problem with having one thing in there. Yeah, the 2 reds scored better than the 3 reds for him, for sure. But yeah, it makes it so that you can get stuck in these positions. That's not a comfortable place to be in a game where people are probably playing with their eyes everywhere. You know, if I'm playing this game at home with my dad and my stepmom, we're going to play a different style of game. Last time I actually played this game with them, I said, I can't be bothered to count points. I should have counted points. You can count points in this game. You can figure out what endgame scores look like. Luca takes the blue there to finish up his top left corner. I think that makes absolute sense. I don't know that there's anything else that's just as good for him. I mean, I guess starting red for the 4th column, putting blue in the 3rd column. Yeah, blue in the top corner was like really his only thing. This is like a dry, sad board. People are just not happy with this anymore. Ryan picked up a bunch of tiles this turn. I mean, I guess he had a bunch in play already, so picked up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tiles this turn. Luca picked up 8 of them. And Andrew, who went first, got so few. Oof. Oof, they say. He's going first again. Maybe he'll get some dream. Rooting for you, Andrew. I believe. Nate here, I think, just takes a blue. It's better to have 2. Oftentimes things come in pairs. I guess you could take the black to start marching, or sorry, not start marching, but to start completing that 3rd row there. But it's not, it just kind of locks you up. Maybe he's thinking about what it kind of looks like if he goes around the board, or he's considering if he takes the black off the factory tile, who gets stuck with the 4 teals? Who does get stuck with the 4 teals? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pulls after that. So it would stick, or it wouldn't stick anyone. Luca would just take the 4 teals and be very happy about it. You don't want that to happen. So you don't take that black. You take the black off the board. I think he just takes the blue. You can see he's counting who takes what on what turn. Maybe he just wants to make sure Luca doesn't get the 4 teal. I don't know how he could stop that. If that's the case. So let's look at what Andrew's taking, because this is what Nate's thinking about. Ooh, he does it. I guess he counted out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That he'll get a blue or a black. I guess it sort of depends on what Andrew was going to take. Andrew's going to take blacks or yellows or blues. That sucks, Andrew. We don't like any of that. Just getting stuck on those things. I mean, yeah, we're not happy with any of them. Ryan's going to take the red because there's nothing else that he wants, which means that Luca's going to get the teal. Maybe Nate was worried about getting stuck with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think he could have gotten stuck. Maybe I misread the board, but I'm not sure what he was afraid of. Andrew just taking the safe play. Luca getting to reap some serious rewards for just being the only person who's open there. This was a huge, huge turn for Luca. He got so many things off the back of other folks not being able to take the things that he was set up and open for. Andrew can choose to pitch a point or take a yellow. Yeah, I mean, I guess the black is worth 5 versus the yellow is worth 4, but it opens up the option of that double teal. So yellow there really feels pretty scuzzy in comparison. This is the turn where I think, I mean, it's nice that Andrew has a column here, but I don't know what he's going to do for the rest of the game. He's going to get the blue diagonal, which is nice. He's going to try for red diagonals, I think. and then just score a couple points. Yeah, because the red diagonal actually scores even more because he's played that yellow there. I guess that's his plan. You just got to score those diagonals. Problem is that other players want reds. Ryan wants 2 reds. Luca wants 4 reds. Nate still wants 2 reds. There's a rush on reds right now, I think. And I think that's because of the way that players, particularly at higher level, play this game. They really focus on the center of the board there. And the reds are that split diagonal. So they're very awkward. And so people are not excited about taking reds at the beginning of the game. 3 or 4 reds is crap usually at the beginning of the game because they're just stuck on the side walls there, which is where folks don't want to be. So instead, they end up leaving the reds behind, but now you need reds, and you find yourself in this situation where you're really at the whims of the turn order. But Luca somehow going third has just kind of continued to be okay by that. I think it's just because he's drafting well behind his opponents. He knows what's up. I think Ryan's probably in a very good shape here. I mean, he's a couple points behind Luca, but he's got his plan. This is probably the last round of the game. Although looking across the board now that Luca has that column finished and probably is finishing a second column, Ryan might not feel so good about that. He might actually be saying to himself, I should complete the red diagonals because he's close on the 4th, and then he needs that bottom column. I mean, because he doesn't need it because he was kind of ahead and he can score some points, but it makes a really big difference. So the goal here, well, Ryan's in this cute position where he kind of can dictate the end of the game. Luca's the only other one who can end it right now, and he can only do that if he gets 2 reds. So if we get some kind of flop here that is a little bit light on reds, and Ryan takes those reds, it takes 2 reds, put them in the 4th column there, and Luca can't take 2 reds, suddenly Ryan is completely in the driver's seat about whether this game ends or not. And then he gets to choose if he thinks he's winning or not. That's fascinating. That might be just where Ryan's at. If I'm Luca, I want to end the game. You're in great shape. 2 reds, 4 reds. That's what you're looking for. 3 blues are very respectable too. And any of those ones are fine for you in this moment. So you're okay as long as you don't get kind of stopped up. Nate, who has kind of fallen a bit behind from his glory days, is in trouble, I think. I mean, he's now kind of scoring some awkward. He's got no end game goal that he's particularly headed for. He wants 2 reds as well, and I've just mentioned how many people want reds. Andrew's looking at the board. I think that, I mean, if he's going to complete his red diagonal, it's now or never. Because there's 2 sets of 2 reds on the board right there. So if he takes it and then Ryan takes it, then that, wow. But he takes a single blue instead. Why? What are you worried about? All the other players have 1 and 2 blues in play. Ooh, I don't like that play at all. 2 reds for Ryan is, I think, kind of a no-brainer here. And then Luca is going to go for it, right? He's got to. Yeah, you're winning. You're winning in endgame points and on-game points. Like, you want this baby to end. Let's go. Last round of the game. 5 rounds. I thought it was going to be Ryan, but it's Luca. This sucks for Nate. Nate won 2 reds. They weren't going to come. I mean, they weren't going to come around, I think. I think Andrew probably should have nabbed 2 reds because then he could complete his diagonal, which is a lot. So what's our plan, Nate? Couple options to finish the blacks there, but really only the one clean option. 2 blues. Nope. He doesn't want any negative points. Now there's piles of teals again. Too bad for Ryan, he can't take them. Kind of would almost complete his diagonal. Luca could take him and put him in the bottom there. It doesn't really score any points, but it does open up the diagonals. There's a lot of teals. The teals always seem to kind of, I mean, obviously this is a total like survivor bias or confirmation bias, but they seem to come in these like waves in the way that other tiles don't. I suspect it has something to do with the fact that they're kind of the more middle pieces. The blues and the teals, I think people really grab a lot because of that sort of center strategy. And Andrew takes the 1 red. I mean, it scores him points in the top column that he's not going to otherwise. I don't think he's going to get those other 2 reds, but if he could, that would be a dream. He takes the 5 blacks. He takes the 5 blacks, which score barely anything because he's hoping to complete the diagonal. And he doesn't want Luca to complete the diagonal. Well, hold on a second. Let's hold on a second. If instead of taking the 2 blacks, 5 blacks, he takes the 2 blacks, maybe Luca takes the 5 blacks because it almost completes that column there if he can get 3 blues, which he's not going to because Nate's going to contest him on the blues. But it does score him 3, 4, 5 points. So, I mean, the 5 blacks are very sweet for him. So I imagine Ryan's just taking these otherwise. Okay, never mind. I was thinking that maybe Luca wasn't going to take the 5 blacks. Ryan could take the 2 blacks and then hope no one would take the 5 blacks because the other players are not incentivized, but they are. So, yeah, I think Ryan's just kind of stuck in this position where he keeps needing to get in Luca's way, which is it's the position he needs to be in right now. He doesn't have any other choices. So he's praying those 2 blacks come around to him. And if I'm Luca right now, I would really heavily consider taking those 2 blacks, putting them in my top row. I know I'm going to score 4, 5, 6 points for those, -1. So I'll score 5 points for those. And I make sure that Ryan doesn't get his stuff. Luca doesn't want to play like that. He says there's tons of teals on the board. Let's go back to what you suggested earlier, Nick, and let's see if we can greed an additional diagonal here. In terms of points, that's a garbage points play. I think he's just giving himself outs because he feels comfortable that he's in the lead, that instead of playing defense in the sense of like smacking down other players, he's playing defense in terms of like, do something to stop me. And then this is the awkward part in the game where Nate picks up a tile and then seems unsure if that was the tile he really wanted to take. I'm not sure if he realized that he didn't really want to take 2 actions to take both of them, but they end up looking up the rules, and the rules of etiquette for this tournament basically say if you pick up a tile, you're committed to taking that tile, as I understand it. I didn't play in it, but that's what I understand. I think that's what they're looking up. So that's really a huge bummer for Andrew, who was kind of hoping that he might be able to sneak his way into getting the 2 reds, and now that dream is dead. So Nate is going to go ahead and take it, and then probably take the second one later, scores him some points. I still think I would have maybe taken the 2 blues as him instead. I guess he might still be able to get the blues if no one else wants them, but I think Luca does kind of want them. I don't know if he's going to contest him or if he's kind of got his teal dream now. So maybe Nate can get both the reds and the blues, which is, if he's looking for a chance to win, that's his chance to win, right? As he gets the things that he wants. I think that Nate is probably dead in the water, but we'll see. Andrew's in a horrible position. He knows he's dead. He's just too far behind. The game is going to end. If you are the kind of player that says I want to maximize my points, then I think what he's taking now is yellows to fill out the second and third rows for yellows, because nothing else really scores him points. And I would probably take those 3 yellows from the middle because I don't think any other player really wants 2 yellows. And I'd take those 3 yellows from the middle, whereas Ryan down here does want 3 yellows, and throw them on my third row there with the plan of getting a second row. Instead, he plays Kingmaker. He says, it's only 1 point for me, but I can't let you have it, Ryan. It's too many points, which is fair. That's a 12-point set of tiles. More than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is a 19-point set of tiles for Ryan. Which, in any game where Andrew's in a decent position, that's the game that you play. And this is the awkward thing about games like this, right? Where you have to make the choice of, do I score 4 points for myself or 2 points for myself, right? That's what Andrew's looking at here, versus letting you score 19. Now that I'm actually talking out loud, there's just so many points that I think he doesn't have a choice but to block him. But man, is that good for a Luca and Nate, who didn't have to do the work for it. Ryan goes ahead and takes the singleton teal, which makes sense. It gets in Luca's way. It's exactly what he wants. I think the only thing he would have considered maybe is taking the yellows for a couple points over there, but because there were 5, it's just too many negative points. Can't tell if Ryan's just a really good sport and just a nice guy. I mean, I think he owns a couple game stores. So I said Andrew. I think I meant Ryan. I think he owns a couple of game stores. So you would imagine he's played games a bunch. Usually people that have those kinds of reps there. Sorry, Nate. I'm sorry I'm blocking your face here. I just wanted to make sure people could see the beautiful commentators as well, even if you can't hear them. Luca takes the singleton there. He throws it in the first row instead of the 5th row because it actually scores a little bit more in terms of points. And he can't play a black. There's no more blacks left. So the teals can only go in the top row. And he's now basically daring players to take those teals away from him. And Nate gets his 3 blues, which is as much as he maybe could have hoped for in this instance. Yeah, I don't think. I guess he could take the 2 teals, which would essentially end his game. He knows he's not going to win if he takes those 2 teals. And he's probably worried about Ryan too. He could also just take the red, which scores more points than taking the blues does, and also makes the game possibly shorter, right? Because there's that extra action there. 1, 2. Yeah, and then he doesn't get stuck with piles of yellows. Right. So he takes the red because, Andrew could take those yellows to score 4 points at the cost of, a meager 6. So he could just take the negative point play, which he won't. So the only play he has is to take the teals, which is really nice for Ryan. Because if Luca takes those teals, it's completely game over for him. He can't have that diagonal as well. Maybe Nate noticed that. But again, Andrew's stuck in this position where he's kind of playing a little bit of kingmaker. In this case, like, nothing scores him points. And in fact, taking those yellows scores him negative points. So I think that's kind of the play. And Ryan does actually want those 3 blues. They score a fair amount of points for him. So unless he's taking the blues, which he can't. He has nowhere to fit them. Ryan takes those, scores a handful, 6 additional points at -1. So 5 additional points, which is a nice way for him to end his game. And then Luca, he's going to score some negative points here, but it's mostly washed out by the fact that he's already been working on that right-hand column. So it's sort of a net negative. I'm sure when he had a second to last turn there, he was looking at it, and yeah, it's a -1 point there, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. Never mind. It makes a big deal always in Azul when you're a point in a game that's this close. Tight game. I can tell you right now that the game ends in a tie. You can guess who the players are, but I've already kind of hinted at it. I think both strategically and just sort of the way things are going here. Ryan completely blows this game out of the water if Andrew doesn't take those 2 blacks. And honestly, it's the right call. It's the right call for Andrew, no matter what. But it's just an interesting dynamic when you're playing. People are like, "Oh, Euro games are so nice. They're not aggressive." One of the games I played was Dominant Species Marine this year, and that game is so aggressive. People can choose who wins and who doesn't win in that game, who gets attacked. You can do that in a lot more games than you think, my friend. So they're scoring up at the end here, and it looks like Ryan's got 54 and Luca's got 47, which makes sense because they both have a row completed and Luca's got the column completed. So that's going to put them at a tied score of 56. And then Luca is going to wind up winning the game on the tiebreaker because he's in the last seat. I think actually the real tiebreaker is number of rows completed, which they both have 1 row completed. And then the World Series of Board Gaming tiebreaker is that last seed thing. So he's going to walk away with a victory on that second tiebreaker right there, which is just totally crazy. And Luca placed second in Brass Birmingham the night beforehand. So I think that's like one of the games that he feels he's best at. So to come and then actually like get into a second final and get your way through it like right on the last moment there, that's so good. That's so good for him. I mean, that's really exciting. And he seems like a delightful competitor. I think everybody here played well. I think Nate got kind of messed up in the mid game because of the way the tiles worked out. I didn't agree with a few of his picks, but he also didn't have great choices and kind of suddenly getting stuck in the 4th seat there. He was just getting the dregs all game long. Like you really don't want to be in that position. Unfortunately, just kind of ended up breaking that way because of what Ryan and Luca were doing. They weren't interested in going first. They didn't need to grab from the middle. And then the things that Nate cared about were gone. And so then Andrew, kind of who was playing the most orthogonal to everybody, would end up going first. And, he ends there with that blue diagonal, which is so awkward. I mean, look at that 4th row thing. It doesn't touch anything. And so, yeah, he's scoring endgame points. He would have had another 10 from the reds there, which, catches him up. Like it gives him a respectable score if he has that. But I think just starting from the bottom like that, if the game goes 7 turns and maybe if it goes 6 turns, that's a better opportunity for him. But in a game where it's short, starting from the bottom like that and not getting any of the top row things, he just missed on too many opportunities to score along the way. And I'm surprised, honestly, to see that Ryan's strategy of not having any columns and not having any diagonals was so profoundly effective. I mean, he basically just built that block and then just kind of connected it as solidly as he could. And I wonder what would have happened if he had taken those 2 blacks instead of taking those 5 blacks. I think Luca just scores too many points from taking the 5 blacks that he probably wins anyway, and he wins for real instead of on the tiebreaker. But those 2 blacks were really good for him. They would have been 8 points. Honestly, that might have been it. I think if he considers taking those blacks instead, it's possible. It's impossible to say really how things would have broken down at that point and where things go. But Ryan's pretty insulated from bad stuff happening because his bottom row is mostly clear. But Luca would have scored more points too, so I don't know. Anyway, that was our first run through of me talking through the finals, semifinals, the World Series of Board Gaming. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I'm going to look forward to doing a couple more of these. Get in the comments. Let me know, what did you think? Did you agree with my strategic comments? Did you disagree with them? If you're one of the players of the game and you think I completely misrepresented you, feel free to flame me on the internet for it. And I'll see you around. Thanks, everyone, and appreciate you for watching the video.